Brutal.
By the way, I meant to tell you that I've just traded my Alexa against a Google Home.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk a lot about Google Home and Alexa. So really sorry to every listener that listen to that out loud because it might activate your device quite a bit.
Yeah.
Uh,
Don't they have protections against that now?
they don't. They actually don't. Like yesterday, I was Skyping with Raleigh and Hippo, two of my friends, and they saw that I have a Google Home. So they played for 10 minutes, saying okay Google, okay Google, okay Google, and now it's starting
Okay.
again.
Okay, Google. Okay,
But
Google.
I don't. It's in my headphones, so it doesn't
Ah.
work. But but the thing that I don't understand is now Google Home can actually recognize your voice. So when I'm speaking, it says okay, you're Vlad, and when Joe is speaking, it says okay, you're Joe. But you can't stop guests to actually be able to do so.
Well, maybe they're working on it. I don't know. Does Alexa also have like different profiles for different people? Are they all on the same page for that?
I'm not sure.
Not sure.
I know that Siri doesn't care. What's the thing? HomePod. I know that HomePod doesn't have different user. And Alexa, I never went to the trouble to actually
Try.
try to set up that. Just because it wasn't connected to anything. So meaning when I had the Alexa, it was just connecting to my Philips Hue and to my Spotify account.
Mm-hmm.
So I could just listen to music and set up the light, but it didn't it wasn't linked to my Google account. So Joe couldn't ask for my last text message, couldn't ask for my email. But now that it's Google, it's
Okay.
directly connected to my mail and to my everything. So
So is that why you changed? Did you want more features?
not at all. It just so this
Why did you change?
there's a couple of reasons. The first one is I hate saying Alexa, and you can't set that up. You can't change it. You can just say Alexa or Echo, and that was really messed up. And the thing is we needed to change, and the main reason actually that I changed it is that Google Home is now bilingual.
Well, that's pretty nice. I didn't know it was bilingual. That's one thing, like they put ages to make the Android keyboard bilingual.
I know. But that what I don't know. I'm not using Google keyboard. I'm using what everyone was using 5 years ago.
Swift key.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because SwiftKey was bilingual
Yeah.
at that time.
But I think now, if I'm not mistaken, Google caught up a little. I'm still using Swift key.
Okay.
But
I mean, SwiftKey is fine.
yeah.
And
And you
I'm
paid
just,
for
not
it,
that-
so.
What?
And I paid for it, so I better get the most of it.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. But the thing is, I'm not that sure about sending every key to a third party, which is not Google, Facebook, or Apple.
Especially your bank account.
Yeah, exactly. Everything is obviously you write everything on your keyboard, so I'm not that sure about sharing all my details to that.
But don't worry, I think SwiftKey belongs to some big company. Didn't Microsoft buy it or something? Yeah, Microsoft bought SwiftKey, so you can rest at ease.
Okay, so it's fine. Yeah, subsidiary of Microsoft. Yeah, so okay, I'm fine with that now. It's a bit insane how we trust big company, but we don't trust startup.
Well, it makes a bit of sense because big companies have more money to invest in security. And if they have problems, it's more visible. But some big company can fuck up big time. LinkedIn.
LinkedIn is Microsoft now.
Well, I don't know. Did they have a lot of security issues since they got bought?
I have no clue.
So anyway, let's back to the topic. So you changed from Alexa to Google Home because of the bilingualism.
Yeah, exactly. Because I didn't really care about using English or French, but the thing that I cared about was being able to play tracks that have a French name or an English name. And with Alexa, when you set it up in French, you could it could only understand French tracks.
Wait, you can play the tracks you want? Are you paying for the music?
I'm paying for my music streaming account.
Wow, I've never seen that. All the people I know in my family who have Google Home are forced to listen to the default stations.
But it's useless then.
Yes, pretty much, yes.
No, but the main reason of a Google Home is to play music, I think, right now. So if you don't have a music streaming account, then it's a bit useless.
Okay, so maybe that's why I'm super puzzled about what the use is.
I do three things with it.
Mm-hmm.
Shopping list, like everyone, I guess. Timer, a lot of timer. I
For
love because
cooking?
like we what?
For cooking?
Yeah, we cook like we cook basically every day with Joe. So we set up a lot of timers, and what I like with Google and Alexa that Siri can't fucking do is set up different timer during the same time. So you can say set up a timer for the eggs for 5 minutes and set up a timer for the pasta for 8 minutes. So you can do that, and I use it for my Philips Hue light system. That I feel a bit useless. Meaning, like, I love how when I go to bed, I can just say, like, goodbye, Google, and then every light turn off. But that's basically it. Like, the thing with, oh, set up the light to 20% is a bit too much. It's a bit, like, you don't need to do, like, you don't need that.
Okay, so I think you taught me something. That's a good conclusion. So it's actually meant to be a music playing device, as opposed to how it's used in my family, which is as a bogus shopping list. And every time I go to my mom, I say like add tomatoes to my shopping list, and now she has a lot of tomatoes on her shopping list. Today's episode is brought to you by Self-Reference. Do you have anything to write or produce and no inspiration whatsoever? Why not try self-reference? It is an endless source of countless ideas that will feel so close to home that you will not have any problem exploiting them. You might even learn something new in the process. Interest of the result is not guaranteed. Yeah, so the topic for this time is a bit meta. We were organizing all the ideas we had for the podcast and trying to grade them to see which one we were going to keep and do. And it came to us like, how should we grade them? Should it be a 10-point system or something else? Not a percentage, whatever. So to solve this issue, I propose we first like take a quick look at the kind of stuff that we use in daily life, I guess. What kind of stuff do you see around you
So
as an avid rating user?
the thing is, I am an avid rating user because I'm a researcher, full disclosure. So my work is to interview people, but also to
Oh,
do questionnaire. And on questionnaire, you do ask people to grade a lot, but it's not real grading. Meaning, what you want when you do research is to do a grading system or a scaling system that is understood by the user, and not really the best grading system ever. So like it's completely different things. What I like to use is only standard deviation. So I think like standard deviation is working for 99% of like any ranking system.
so I know what the standard deviation is when you have like a series of value and the average and the deviation, okay? But how do you get a rating out of that?
So the thing is like you don't like it's not real standard deviation. Meaning like to have a real standard deviation, you need to actually like have a distribution. Meaning you need to have like 100% and you need to actually like do the average and see like where they stand in the distribution. What I'm just saying is like having the same kind of idea. So it's not using a standard deviation per se, but is having the idea of having the average in mind and then grading against that average. So meaning for the podcast, for example, we rank every idea into an interesting scale. So you have an idea at the beginning. You don't really have an idea of the average, like of the average of interest, like of interesting of your
Idea?
of all of your ideas. So when you use a normal rating, for example, a one like 0 to 10, you tend to like actually you tend to at the beginning be way higher than the average. So you say like the first idea seems kind of interesting, so you put a 7. The second idea seems a bit more interesting, so you feel obliged to put a 1,
What do you
and
mean?
to put a well, like one
One
more
more?
to put one
Okay.
more. So
8?
8, and then the third idea is a bit less interesting. So you're like, okay, so now it's a 5, and then you're going that way, like refining your scale. More time you go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not good because then like it's completely biased toward like the beginning and towards the end, and at the all of the middle section is just averaging and like putting your scale into place. What you do when you use a standard deviation inspired ranking is you actually still need to make those adjustments, but you start with 0. So like the first ID is 0, and then like you go against that first ID, and then you refine the last ID based on the next ID.
Isn't that
So
the exact same thing translated by 7?
so it is. Obviously it is.
But your brain thinks about it differently.
Exactly. Because
Wow.
your brain, when, well, I do statistics every day, so I have that standard deviation ID in my mind every day. So when I see 0, I know that that's the average. And and the thing is also, it's not really the same thing translated to by 7, because 0 is always the average. So like you're pushing the average at 0, which doesn't exist when you begin at a random place, because your first axis is 7. So then the average is like you take the first grade and the second grade. So if you put a 7 and a 5, your average in your mind is 6. It's not 0 or it's not 7. So you can push your thing to say like, okay, my average is my first grade, but it's not true.
Okay, but what if your first sample is like super great and you rate it
Yeah.
0? Everything will be minus stuff.
So the thing is like you need to not be stupid about it as well.
Well, that's a lot of assumptions here.
So no, but like no, I'm not saying. Yeah, obviously it's a lot of assumption. But you can take, if your first ID seems super great, obviously you don't put at 0 because you know that it's better than the average. You have an idea of what you're gonna grade.
So essentially, the rating comes down to average, a little bit better than average, a lot better than average, or like
It's not really like a bit better or not a bit better. Like one standard deviation is kind of a lot already, I would say, like in a normal like distribution. But the thing is like it's the first significant difference. Meaning if you have a 10-point scale, maybe you don't need that much number. Maybe 0 is completely useless. When you use a 0 with like standard deviation, no score is useless. Every score that you use is actually significant, as a significant meaning. When you use a scale that is already defined at the beginning, then then maybe like half of your scale is completely useless. And when you use a predefined scale, you can obviously add digit, but usually what end up happening is you have too much digit. So then the baddest ID or like the least interesting ID get a 4, but you didn't use those like points. So you can say it's completely useless to like it's like the difference is a bit like the difference is not that important, meaning like you end up with kind of the same results. But the difference is by doing that your brain is in another mindset, meaning you're not scaling on an average at move, you're scaling on an average at
I mean,
set.
you're forcing yourself to do a normalization on the fly, essentially.
Exactly.
Take your distribution, center it on 0, and set the standard deviation to -1 and +1.
Yeah, that's exactly standardizing.
So it solves one of the big problems of ratings. That is, a lot of people have an internal bias. Like I've read stuff about Amazon ratings or restaurant ratings, and a lot of people just like, for them 4 means perfect and 5 is like godly. And for other people, 4 is already starting to be disastrous, so they put mainly 5. And so I think Amazon tries to correlate that. The standard way to get rid of that is to remove from each rating the average rating of the user. And so you get the deviation, but still there is also people who are rather conservative to their average and some people who are less conservative, and it's a hell. So
S-
jump like this scale addresses that issue, but it does require an effort when you grade.
Yes, but when you grade, it means to be useful. Like you don't grade for fun. You grade for a purpose.
But in the wild, that's not really what happens, right? People don't do efforts when they grade.
So that's one point I wanted like to talk about is obviously we all went, not obviously, but like we kind of all went to high school. All of our teachers grade us on different scale. So in France it's a 20-point scale. In the US it's a letter based grade, but basically it's a like 10-point scale.
In Japan, it's
Uh,
100%.
in Japan is 100%. And all that scale are a bit different. In France, you have 20, but all the scale is never used. Meaning, like you never go. Well, you can have 20, but it's really, 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 really rare.
It
You
depends.
more like when
It
you.
depends a lot of where you are in your education. Like the 20 scale of high school is not the same as the 20 scale of like university and prepa and primary school.
I don't know. I have better grades in university than in high school.
Well, you didn't go to prepa. When you're a very little child, the bottom of the spectrum is never used because they don't want to hurt your feeling. And when you're a big grown up in prepa, the top of the scale is never used because they want to, I don't know, motivate you.
But the thing, yeah. So what I wanted to say is that actually purposeful? Like, are they doing that exactly for what you say, like to motivate you or not to motivate you, or are they just stupid and like use a scale that is completely useless?
I think it's both. I think they are using what was there before and nobody really asked themselves like, well, why are we using that?
Okay.
But most teachers do normalize their scores at some point, so they have to wonder the impact of the notes on the students. I heard a lot of my teacher being very vocal about that, and
Wow,
sometimes
that's
they would
insane.
even give us like the two versions, before and after normalization.
That's a bit
And
fucked up.
and of,
Like,
all the time when we had like tests and we all
yeah.
fucked up or something like that, we were like, oh, don't worry, there's normalization after that. So, so you're surprised to learn that it was a well-known fact in my schools that notes
Yeah.
were normalized. I wonder if it has any impact on the psychology of a student.
Well, it does though.
I don't know because I mean, for you, you expected the average to be 8 for your teacher, and I expected the average to be 12 for my teacher, and like,
My math teacher, like sometimes it was 6, sometimes it was 5, sometimes it was 12, sometimes it was 10, and you didn't know what the average would be like.
kind of like a loot box effect.
It was just, oh, you've been worse as a group than the previous time, so you have like a 5 average, but it was not, you know what I mean? And at the end of the year it was actually 8, like
Okay.
8 on 20
But
average,
that
but you
doesn't
never
really
knew.
reflect on your experience as one person. That impacts the experience of the group, right? It means the note of the group evolves.
When you're in high school, you don't really care. Like you just want to have better grades than like 10 or like 12. You don't really care about the other,
Okay,
do
so
you?
you're saying that you are comparing yourself to the idealization of the
Exactly.
scale compared to the actual scale.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, yeah, but what does 10 mean in your like, in your ideal scale? Isn't 10 supposed to be like the middle? And then our teacher would actually make that happen.
The thing with the 20-point scale is 10 is supposed to be the smallest amount that you should have to actually succeed.
And your teachers were saying you can't succeed, and my teacher was saying me I can succeed by
Yeah,
by
maybe.
normalizing. So yeah, that's a good segue into what I wanted to talk to you about. I'd like to give a warm shout out to our sponsor, Anything. In the face of limitless possibilities, choosing can be overwhelming. Just pick anything or partner. As a casual writer, I'm very familiar with the oppression of a white page. But after giving anything a try, I was able to write a fake ad for my podcast. It really works. The rating system that influences my life a lot, the one that I breathe and live by, is the
Mhm.
rating system for anime. And
Okay.
so in anime, there is a de facto implied standard rating system, which is the MyAnimalist system, which is a
Mhm.
10-point scale.
Mhm.
But interestingly enough, they try to come up with to help with the normalization by giving meanings to the different numbers.
What?
So 10 is masterpiece, 1 is appalling, and then the interesting question is what do you put in the middle? So 5 is average, 6 is fine, 7 is good, 8 is very good, 9 is great. So that's the
But
way.
what's below 4?
What's below 5? So 5 you have average, 4 is bad, 3 is very bad, 2 is horrible, and 1 is appalling. One might wonder why would you watch an anime if you find it appalling, but that's like, so that's biasing the rating in another way. But so that's a suggestion of yeah. But then you project your own personal bias. For instance, for me, a 7 is like good solid anime. 8 is like excellent. 9 is I can't speak about it without screaming. And 10 is perfection and I cry thinking about it. And everything below 7 I rank in order of pain. 6 is you can watch it and have like boredom but not pain, and then like it goes worst and worst. And I wish there was like negative numbers for some anime.
So clearly your rating system and you're using the scale completely differently as it was supposed to be used.
I'm not sure because if you tell me like as a spectator I find something that's average painful, I would be fine with
Yeah.
that. I think I have high standards, especially for anime.
The thing is, when you compare your scoring of anime with the user base, is it quite the same or like not at all?
Well, it's not the same because I have weird taste, but I think everyone uses it in like approximately the same way, being yeah, the 7 is a good anime. I think the average good anime is 7 for everyone, and it's clear for everyone that 7 is the average good anime, not the average anime.
But then does anyone use less than 5? Like, is there a
Well, to
difference in
complain about
one?
what they watched, I guess.
No, but what I mean is, do you actually need the differentiation between the 1 and the
No,
3?
and I have like not seen a lot of people using the bottom of the scale, empirically speaking, from a very biased sample.
That's what I was saying before. Is like the scale is useless. Half the scale is useless.
So there's even worse than that. So I have a friend. I told you about this friend who wrote a nice paper about Godel and Madoka Magica. He
Mhm.
writes like philosophy and mostly math-driven stuff on his blog. And one time he made an article about this rating system, saying like, "Oh, it's horrible, and I much prefer to use this other website that offers me a 100 points grading system." And
Oh my
his whole
god!
argument was about like, what if I have 7 anime and I like one better than the other? I need the expressivity for it. And I was really upset against him because like clearly this is not only making the signal muddier, but also like uh, impeding your judgment because that's clearly too much choice, like a choice paradox. Like,
And then like and then even like you can only compare 3 or 4 of them, meaning like you can just say, oh, this anime is a bit better. I wanted to put a 7, and I can't, so I want to put 8, but I use a 8 for another like better anime. So then you want to move into a 10-point scale, a 100-point scale. But the thing is, then you can't like if you have 5,000 anime, you just can't compare that precisely anything.
Yeah, so his whole argument was based on pair comparisons
Yeah,
and
okay, that makes sense now.
yeah, transitivity, and there was a little bit of cognitive science that was cute, but I'm like, that's not how human brain works. And I am
Yeah.
completely unable to put anime on a 100-point scale.
But if no, but like 100-point scale are useless. There's not one thing in the world that is subjective to human being that can be put in a 100-point scale. Like there's multiple reasons. First, you can only have 17 in mind, like basically 17 in mind
Oh
at the
yeah.
same times.
When I was buying my mattress, the guy said like, "Oh, there's no need to try them all. Like your brain can't comprehend more than three different mattresses."
Yeah, that's possible. I don't know, for numbers and for word it's 7. For visual spatial memory it's a bit less, like it's 6, 5.
And for mattress, it's three.
For mattress apparently it's 3, but like that's possible because it's a way harder signal to actually process. So I don't think you can ever use that much. And like you can obviously do pair-to-pair comparison based on what's like next to it. You can do that. But why would you want to though?
I think what he was shooting for is a different kind of scale, which reminds me of like this cute game that they do in an anime convention I go to. Is like they take three movies and they order it from better to worst, and every week they add some movies and try to make this ordered list from better to worst. So I think he was more aiming for this kind of like ranking.
But then it's not a, yeah, then it's ranking, it's not rating.
Okay, so what's the difference?
Like ranking is putting like, then obviously you need more, but like it's not a rate, it's an order. You need to order stuff. So if you have 100 things to order, then you want 100 like
So why
place.
shouldn't we rank our ideas instead of rating them?
Because it's fucking useless. Because you can't actually use that that ranking. You can use that ranking, like the human brain can't use that ranking. Meaning, if you see a list of 100 films, and you say like it's a 100 top film in the world, then you would just, and like it's ranked by best to worst. You would take the first 10 and see what you like. You wouldn't take the
Yeah, I
first
guess
one
it's
and say like, okay, fine.
it's kind of a log scale. You have like the first one that is a kind of special, then you have the
Yeah,
first 10
exactly.
that are good, then you have the
Yeah.
first 100 that are. So the human brain kind of like projects that precise ranking onto coarse-grained categories and end up with a rating anyway.
I guess so.
So something that's not quite a rating nor quite a ranking, that's a bit in between, is the Elo ranking or rating. I don't know which is it that they use in chess or in sports.
It's rating.
Rating. So it's a rating.
Yeah.
So it's meant to put people in boxes.
Yeah.
Okay. So why do you need like thousands of boxes? Because it's a ranking too.
So there's two things. I'm not super familiar with the chess system. I'm way more familiar with the Go system. So I think we're gonna talk more about the Go system than the chess system.
Is there huge differences? Because else we can just like talk about the Go system.
So some websites use a Elo system for Go because they don't feel that Go has enough numbers. So basically the Go system is you begin at 30 Q, then you go from 30 to 1. And when you go to 1 Q, then you become a Dan player. And the Dan player system goes from 1 Dan to 7 Dan.
So you have another
Amateur.
scale.
It's completely another scale. And from 1 Dan and from 7 Dan, then you can become a pro. And pro go from 1 Dan to 9 Dan.
Okay, so you have like three different scales.
You have 3 different scales, but the beauty of that scale and why I love this scale is that it's meant for it to be 1 point difference, even Q or in Dan or in Pro Dan, is 1 more stone in the game that you can have. Meaning so you have 1 stone
ranking,
difference.
Oh, the points correlate directly with the in-game handicaps.
Exactly.
That's cute.
So
I don't think Elo points in chess correspond to anything.
Clearly not. But yeah, what I like is like it's a rating that is linked to a real thing that happens. And what I don't like about the Elo system, it's not at all.
That makes sense. So a good system would ground the unit difference into something real and quantifiable.
Yeah, exactly. So it would be, I think it would, like when you go to the Wikipedia page of the Elo rating system, you can basically see that they transfer those Elo points, so from 0 to 4,000, to 10 different classes. So class G, E, like G, I, A, G, F, E, D, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure how that works, but I would think that a class A person would win 80% of the time versus a class B person. And that makes sense then. But I'm not sure that inside the class A there's that much difference.
Whereas in Go, inside one of the ladders, you think the difference of 1 point is meaningful.
If there's a 1 point difference, then you have a 1 stone advantage.
On average, though.
No, because if you win, then like if you win against a 7Q, then you're a 7Q.
Okay, how do we tie that back to ratings and conclude? Maybe you can just like conclude the initial question. So,
Which was?
which was what system should we use for our ideas? And so
Okay.
the -1 the standard deviation system is the best because each number has a clear different meaning and you use everything and it's already normalized, and that's why it's the best. That's, that's a solved issue. But still, I have like a to-do list that is prioritized on a 10-point scale system.
Good. You can change that now.
I'm not sure. I don't want negative priorities.
So you can put a 5, like you can start at 5
Yeah.
or at 10, like whatever.
For priorities, it feels a bit different. Maybe it's because I'm of my work. Like a priority 0 is something like super burning, super urgent. Priority 1 is something important. Priority 2 is like normal priority. Priority 3 is you're never gonna get to it, and priority 4 is what we tell the other teams when we don't want to do their work.
So it's exactly the same system, but instead of like putting the negative and minus, you put the positive and plus. But it doesn't change the rank system. It just changes the quality of like
You
what you
don't really
put.
have an idea of the average or the deviation. You just know which category, like you have very clear semantics for each category.
Mm. So can we say that if you have really like what we're trying to say maybe since the beginning is if you have a really good semantic idea of what each grade is, then it's a good grading system?
And else you approximate that with the average and the deviation.
Yeah. I think we solved the
Okay,
issue.
solved everything. I hope
Yeah.
every episode goes as smoothly. So if you want us to solve your weird and abstract problems or very concrete problems in the same way we brilliantly handled this ratings problem, you can leave a message on the subreddit r/notdailypodcast or find us on Twitter or whatever.
If you found our argument completely stupid, you can also say that into the subreddit. We don't have a Twitter yet, though.
Well, I created a Twitter and just didn't post on it.
We do have a Twitter, though. But I think Twitter is dead, no?
Oh, really? That would make me so happy. We'll see soon.
I don't know, we can talk about that.
There's an episode topic on Twitter ranked like one standard deviation.
Yep. Okay, everyone, bye.
Bye.
See you not tomorrow.
See you not tomorrow.